Bruchim Abom B'Shem Hashem. B'Shem Yegin Shir like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Smith on Emosai Ein Chiv hashovasaveida. Finders keepers. When does that apply? We'd like to give a big shekayach to Rabbi Shechatowitz for sponsoring today's shir. Nishmas Imoy Dina Bas Rabbi Yosef Ala Shalom. The outside is Chav Beis Teves. Then Nishmas Tzur B'Tzur Achayim. I'd like to give a big shekayach to Rabbi Yitzchak Stern for sponsoring today's shir. Nishmas Aviv Rabbi Chiel Tzvi Bar Moshe Alevi Ala Shalom. Just to Chav Tevis, and it's supposed to be Chaim to the great listen sponsoring a share call agent share Torah 718-851-865 on the email ist@yeshivanet.com. Harav Smith.
Shalom Shadran tells a story. He once met Rabbi Tzalel. He was a milkman. He schlepped milks Eretz Yisrael, and he was all excited. He found an Aveida, and he wants to put up a sign as if he just won the lottery. He found an Aveida. So Shalom looked at it and says, it seems like it was there a while. It's probably after Yaaosh. And then the person looked as if he just lost a Hain Rav. He says, really? It's a mitzvah, it's hashovasaveida. So the lesson of the story is the excitement that a Yid is supposed to have when we find an Aveida. As we'll soon see, it's a mitzvah, two mitzvahs actually. But the problem is that you're dealing with Aveidas. It's very hard to know what to do. When do you keep it? When does it taka find its keepers? What do you do if you're supposed to be machriz it? So we're going to try today to discuss the common shilas. When is it taka harei l'shaloi? When do you have to return it? If you found it in a public place, and the many common shilas. So one thing is certain: the Torah, in two places, in Parashat Mishpatim, Perek Chav Gimel, in Parashat Kiseitze, Perek Chav Beis, speaks at length about the חיוב of hashovasaveida. But what's for us important, when a person sees an Aveida and he just ignores it, he's oivan alav of lesucha lesalem, because you're ignoring an Aveida. And also, he was mevatel a mitzvah deraisa of hashav teshivim, which is no different than shaking lulav and eating matzah. But we also know that there are situations of harei l'shaloi. So the first klal, and this is important to mention, maybe there's no chiyuv hashav in the first place. You can't keep it, but you could leave it. And that's what's called derech hinuach. To give an example, you're walking Shabbos afternoon, and you see there's green stuff sticking out of the shelf. There's farm shank. What is that? It's called money. Money is sticking out of this farm shank. Now, you don't have to be too smart to know it didn't fall there. What happened? Someone came late Friday afternoon. He didn't keep the din of mamashmesh, the begodov. He didn't check his pockets before he came to shul. And during Mincha, typically, during Shemana Esrei, he feels it. So what does he do? He quickly, after he finished Mincha, he stashes into the shelf. Now it's already Shabbos, so he doesn't want to touch it. It's muktzah. So he somehow squeezes it into the shelf. That's called derech hinuach. He didn't drop it there. He knows exactly where it is. So first of all, you can't keep it, because the makam is a siman. He can tell you exactly where it was. And that's a good siman. More than that, you're doing a disservice to pick it up, because after he finishes Ma'ariv, if he doesn't daven there, he'll come and take back the money. You picked it up and you assume that you're allowed to keep it. It's a terrible disservice. So klal number one is, when you have a Aveida, there's a Chiyuv hashava. Derech hinuach, don't touch. So basically, that rules out a number of cases. Now, I must mention, if an item is in a place that the goyim will sweep it, or take it, or break it, let's say it's on the floor, you might step on it, mavdafka goyim, you can step on it. So the Aveida that's in a unsafe place, even though it's derech hinuach, you have to pick it up. But usually, if it's in a derech hinuach, it's safe where it is. Big mitzvah, I would say. Very often you find derech hinuach that it's obvious that it's there a while, and it's probable the Bible didn't lose it. He put it there and forgot. Either he forgot about it entirely, or he forgot where he put it. I'll give you an example. It's during the hot summer, and you see a winter coat hanging in the shul's coat rack. Now, there's no coats there except that one. What's it doing there? Someone came a few months ago, left his coat or forgot his coat, whatever it is, and now obviously he doesn't know where it is, or else he would take it. So there's no חיוב השבה, but there's a mitzvah chesed. So if there's a phone number, call up and say, I don't know if you know, but your coat is hanging in Pliny Beis Medrash. Take it when you want. Now again, it's not hashovasaveida, or maybe it is, but there's no חיוב השבה if he comes and picks it up. But to notify him, that would be a great mitzvah. Now, of course, the big shuls, you go they have a whole bunch of coats, all avedas. It would be a nice thing to do, but it's not possible. But no doubt about it, when you see an aveda that's derech hinuach, and you suspect the bailam forgot about it, call him. If there's a phone number, you could call him. Now, the next question, a very common question. You found a typical big pen. I just choose that because it says in the box, it's America's most popular pen. And the shaila is, what do you do with that? What's the shaila? So here's a big pen, and because this pen is a regular pen in yeshiva. There must be hundreds of them. The problem is that on a regular big pen like this, there is no siman. It's shava pruta, but there's no siman. So the question is, what's the halacha by something like this, that there's no siman? You have to pick it up. You find in the mountains a Lego piece. No siman. It's all the same. But shava pruta. You find a new item. You go to a store and someone bought a pair of socks and left it in a bag. There's no siman on a new item. Very common, people bring food that they bought in one store to in the next store, they leave it there. All the same food. No siman. So here the question is, if it's after yeshiva, if you could assume the person knew he lost it and was miyayish, harei shaloi, find his keepers. Perfect. But how do you know it's after yeshiva? Because don't forget, people sometimes don't realize. Now, like once Rabbi Yashav said that today an item that is vada yeshiva, or at least he knows that he lost it, is a cell phone. Because Adam osi v'mashmesh b'cell phone b'chol shah. How true that is. He also said a pen, incidentally, if someone that's writing, he also knows he lost it. But let's talk about a Lego piece. A big pen. Or maybe he doesn't even know he lost it because he has so many of them. So I'm talking about a aim by siman before yesh. So what's the shaila? If it's a shava pruta, din pruta, kedin meya. But here we come to a factor that impacts our sugya in a very big way. Why do you pick up an aveda? Because you want to return it. This pen, there's no way al pi halacha you could return it. There's no siman. A Baum said, I lost a black big pen. Do you have a siman? No, I can't give it to you. Don't forget, a big part of siman, reish, samach, zayin, choshim, mishpit, is how to interrogate someone that lost an item. You can't just give it back. It's not a question of chesed. There's the parsha in Kiseitze. You have to pick it up. You have to ask him for a siman. Make sure he's not a liar, not a ramai. It's not yours. It's an aveda. Maybe it's someone else's. So if there's a siman, you could decide if he's giving the right siman. But since there's no eventual siman, so you cannot give it back al pi halacha. So why pick it up? Now, you can't keep it if it's before yesh. So leave it. Or maybe we'll say even more than that. This person lost his pen after the share in the share room. Okay? If you leave it there, there's a chance he'll say, hey, I lost my pen in the share room. He'll go back and look for it. If you pick it up, he'll go back, won't see it. You have the pen, aim by siman, she made it worse for the Bible. So you don't gain by picking it up, and you may making it worse for the Bailam. So maybe we'll say, aim by siman, before yesh, leave it. Or maybe we'll say, who gives you the right to make such a decision? Is it a חיוב השבה? Is it a shava pruta? Pick it up. So it's interesting, it's not in the earlier poskim. Rabbi Kiva Ega, in two places in Bava Metzia, Chaf Aleph Amabeis and Chaf Vav Amabeis, both places he says, aim by siman, you can't keep it yet, if it's 4 years. But it's no chiv to pick it up. Just leave it there. And then Mr. Ran, one of the Rishonim in Daf Chaf Hayam Amabeis, seems to say the same yesod. Now this is very relieving, because in yeshiva, there are pens and other items that aim by siman. Now, Lamaisa, this applies to something that is aimed by siman. But even that, I want to read you the words of the Rav Shulchan Aruch in Hilchas Dina Metzia, Siman Siv Beis. The Rav says the following: when someone lost something and you find it, so even aim by siman, tzorach litloi al das lahachziroi l'mishi yizbaya shehu bailov al pi edim. So the Rav is saying, even aim by siman, it's possible that he could prove it that it's his. We'll soon see maybe tviyas ayin, maybe he has edim that attaches his pen. You didn't see the siman, maybe there is a siman. So the Rav clearly holds that aim by siman, this is חיוב השבה. Pick it up and hope for the best. Rav Moshe and Chelik Beis and Chayshimish, but siman memhei sif kat and dalid. So when you find an aim by siman, and before years, you can't keep it. So we're getting the feeling that even though it's an aim by siman, you have to do yours. Put up a sign, no one comes, so munach. But I did see the Imre Yakov is a pirish on the Rav Shulchan Aruch. He says, look at the lashon of the Rav. It's not a raya that he holds you have to pick it up. The Rav says, if you want to take it, you have to take it. I'm going to ask to give it back. But maybe you could leave it and wait for years. Now, it is a doichik to say that, but in Svara, it's hard to understand why you're picking it up if there's no eventual chazara. And this Imre Yaakov points to the lashon of the Torah, where the Torah says you have a חיוב השבה if there's shava pruta and yesh by siman. That might say aim by siman, leave it, can't keep it, but leave it. Rabbi Yashiv in the Sefer, a wonderful Sefer Mammon Yisrael, it's page 170, was asked, what should we do? The Kirega says you're allowed to keep it, you don't have to pick it up, leave it. The Rav L'Chayra says you have to pick it up and try. Do we say Safek Deraisa, you have to pick it up? So Rabbi said no. Since it's likely Mistavra, like a Kiveiga, you could say that's the psak, and there's no חיוב השבה on an aim by siman. Rabbi Yashiv added, and this in Asher Yaash, page Reish Chavav, that if this aveid is in a place that it will get destroyed, or Goyim will step on it, and it won't survive anyhow, maybe it's better off picking it up and trying for the best. But a regular case, a pen on the floor, on the side, just leave it there. Now, a point to ponder. Let's talk about a pen, regular pen that's used, but no siman. But we find a Gemara, Chayshemish, but the end of Reish Samach Beis, a Talmud Chacham that's honest could even get an aveda without a siman, what's called a tviyas ayin. So the question is, how could you right away say like a kivega, aim by siman, leave it? Maybe a Talmud Chacham lost it, and it's tviyas ayin. You have the right to return it. So the answer is very simple, and Ben Mr. Ramos says it. Takdir, the end of Reish Samach Beis. If it's a normal place that very few people are Tamid Chacham in this regard, you don't have to be chayshish. You go bust a right. If you find an item in a place that's roiv tamidei chachamim, and in a chanami, you would have to pick it up because maybe someone has a tefiyas ayin. Now, the only item that definitely does not have a tefiyas ayin is a new item, a bought item, food item, all the same. Then, in a chanami, there's no concern. This is lamaisa why it makes things a little easier to know that today we have many aim by simons, and it's sort of in between. You can't keep it, but you can leave it there. Question, let's say I see a pen on the floor. Maybe there's a simon, how do I know? So I pick it up, look, turn it. No simon, I put it down. The shaila is, I'm not the lo yachza. So this l'chayra is members mechaber and reish samach sif yud. You can't just put it back. You machayv and hashava. But here we're going to say, which makes sense, since the item is an aim by siman, there's no chiyuv hashava, so you can't make a chiyuv hashava from nothing. So if you look at just b'tanai to see if there's a chiyuv hashava and there's nothing, put it back and give item. What's very common in yeshiva, there's a pen on the floor, probably aimed by siman, so you don't want to touch it. But when bachim go from the shir, someone's going to step in and break it. Can I pick it up from the floor and put it on a table? See, the truth is for the bailam, it's confusing because he lost it on the floor. Now it's on the table. How to get there? Maybe it's someone else's. But then again, to leave it, it's going to get destroyed. So maybe you should pick it up. Maybe if you have time, put a note, this was found on the floor. Hope for the best. The bailam will see it and take it. What's very important to mention, the halacha is, as we'll soon see, if you find money, it's the same halacha like it was the time of the Gemara, Hare Elu Shalai. Sometimes you have a suffix if you keep the money. For example, you find money in a soda machine, a candy machine, a laundry machine. So unless you have Ruach HaKodesh, you don't know whose it is. Maybe it was a customer that didn't get that he forgot to take his change. Maybe it's the owner of the machine. You have to have Ruach HaKodesh. And could be there the makam is a siman. Someone says, I just bought an item and I didn't get the change. So you don't know. Or you come to shul and you find in the place you want to daven, there's 3 quarters there. Someone has money for tzedakah, they didn't give, or $3, whatever it is. The money has no siman, l'chayra, but maybe it's the makam is a siman. So here we're going to say the same yesod. If it's aimed by siman, you could assume that it's derech hinuach, especially, just leave it there. To keep it, you're playing with fire. Maybe it's not yours. Maybe the makam is a siman. But you're always safe by leaving it there. Derech hinuach, don't take. And even if it's an aveida, but it's aimed by siman, you could keep it if you want, but you'd rather not. Leave it there and you're safe. The next group of questions, which comes up in many forms, unfortunately, in today that we live in, this is the metzias. Let's say you see a pen with a cap, but this is bitten up. Now in yeshiva, you should know, the nervous fellows, they bite the pen, the cap. And probably if he brings his dental records, he could prove that this is, his bite marks. But even without it, he has a siman. Now, so let's assume a pen has a siman. It's cracked in the top, whatever, a distinct siman. But what are the chances that a person is going to look for a bitten up pen? It costs all of 15 cents to buy a new one. So the question is, even if there is a chiyuv hashava, if we could assume the bailam won't come, so it's an effort of futility. So this is a more aggressive shaila. It's really a yesh by siman. And there used to be a time when someone lost an aveida, he went to look for it. Today, we live in a society, a disposable society. You lose something, buy a new one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I invite you to come to a camp after the buses pull out, and all the bachim and parents know whatever's left in the camp is hefka. you will not believe what you're going to find in the boys' rooms. It's unbelievable. Clothing, mamish. So I met someone Friday. I'm walking together to give a shir. He said, "What are you talking about?" I'm giving a hashovasaveida shir in the yeshiva. I just heard from a manayel of a hashovasaveida in a big mosad in Eretz Yisrael, and the mosad, the manayel said, "This we have a hashovasaveida, very organized. Each item is in a separate place. Very easy to find your aveda. We have the value of $1 million items in this hashovasaveida, and nobody comes to claim avedas." Sometimes a person looks for a cell phone, because that's today's neshama, evash and neshama taliboy. But it's unbelievable. People don't look. You know, pachim ketanim is history. Even pachim gedolim no one looks for. But the shaila is, can you make it anu halacha that today there's no חיוב hashovasaveida? Unless you really convince someone's going to look for it. Now you say, wait a minute, it's not a shulchan aruch. It's not a kivega, like an aim by siman. It's a pashit. Because in those days, you looked for something. You ran to find it. Today we live in an affluent society, no one looks. So Lamaisa, this is mamish a haintik shayla. I guess when you were young, you lost something, you looked for it. So in the Sefer Mishpatei Torah, in Bava Metzia, in the end he has Hilchas Hashovasaveida, it's Amud Nun Ches, and the Sefer Mammon Yisrael 193, he seems to say that some Gedolim said that. If you know no one's going to look for this item, let's say a Lego piece, a pacifier in the bungalow colony, a bottle, even if there's a siman, but people, they won't even use it if once it got lost. Yesh. Yeah, maybe it's yesh. So without yesh, that's what we're talking about. But in Ashrei Ish, Amad Reish Chav Zayin, Rabbi Yashiv is quoted as saying that if you know that the Bailam won't come, perhaps better leave it there. Because on the tzad that he will come back, he can find it. Picking it up and being machris it, no one looks. So I'll leave that as a question mark. It's not as simple as the aim by siman. But if you have an item, especially, and you know you're going to pick it up, it's just going to stay and munach hachavalio, you have no place for that in your house. If you have a good suffix that maybe it was achayish, like you said, and besides that, even before yish the Baalim won't come, you could leave it there and we'll assume there's no חיוב השבה. Now the next big question is it correct to put an item that's yesh by siman and the Baalim will look for it? You found a nice sweater, but the policy in this shul, yeshiva, etc. is, or store, you put it in lost and found. There's a closet, there's a box. Is that a valid hashava, picking it up because it has a חיוב hashava and put it in the lost and found? So we'll call it hashovasaveida or even atoyin to have it more hamisha feeling to it, but that's what it is. It's a lost and found. So needless to say, that is not a kiyum mitzvah of hashovasaveida. The pasuk clearly says, "Vasafte el toich beisecha, v'yimcha adroish achicha oisai." You have a חיוב to become a little of a detective and interrogate the fellow. You lost something? What color? Did it have all the buttons? Tell me siman. You might be hurting the real bailam by giving it back to the wrong bailam. So that's no doubt about it. When there is a חיוב hashava, you can't just put it into a hashovasaveida box. And it's not an option. But, and here's the big but, because today many, or if not most, if not all meisters operate on this yesod, that people lose items, don't look for them. The mosad cannot afford a full-time worker to be a policeman. So it's either it's a sign or understood. In this, you walk into these premises, it's on the condition that all items are put in a lost and found. And after 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it is, they're disposed of. If you don't like that conditions, shop elsewhere, daven elsewhere. You have to realize the moises don't need, they can't deal with the avedas. You go to a big shul after Yom L'Royim, you know how many machzorim are left over? With names, phone numbers. So you want to hire someone to do that job? So the only eitzah to survive is make such a takana. Rav Moshe was asked, and this is in the Sefer, I saw this in the back of the Sefer, hashovasaveida it's Amud Kufay and Gimel, it's mi pishmua, but the person was very, very careful to record properly what Moshe told him. He asked Moshe if you could make an hashovasaveida room, number one, and number two, to make a cutoff point. After X amount of days, it's all going to be thrown out or given to a tzedakah. So Moshe says, you could do that, and toiv l'sakin. It's good to make takana. Because the truth is, for the Bailam that lost it, if he knows where to look for it, it makes it easier. Instead of looking for a sign, calling the person, just walk in. Now, this is why Rav Moshe does say, he does make a point that make it that some people can't go shopping there. Maybe you have to maybe you should lock the door and get the guy to open the door, something like that. But it has to be in a way that it's protected slightly. But at the end of the day, when we have a takana, you come into the shul, you come into the yeshiva, this is the precondition. Now, Rav Moshe added, maybe someone came in who didn't see the sign. So now that's a miyut. Now, it's not hilchas hashovasaveida. This is sav of a kibbel. You came into our mosid on that condition. Now, in the Lumdus, there's a famous yisoid that the issa of geneva goes basa halacha. If halacha says there's no chiyuv hashava, you could leave it there, or you could put in hashovasaveida, so that then there's no sikzeli. You're not doing anything wrong, and that's the concept of a tanai. In the Sefer Mishpat Aveida, Amud Kuf Nun Vav, Yashiv was asked, and I think this is in Eretz Yisrael, that what should be done with an Aveida, you give it to the police department. Now this is what he writes there. I don't know if this is in Eretz Yisrael necessarily, but the police do a good job. They will interrogate the person, and they won't give it back, Stam. Can you give it back to the police department, police station? So Yash says, why not? If they do the inquiries, and they're not giving it back to someone else, why not? In a page, this is again in the Sefer Mishpat Aveida Amud Kuf Nun Vav. Then I saw in the Sefer hashovasaveida it's page Mem Zayin. He quotes Rav Moshe Mordechai and Rav Mordechai Gross, two of the Heintige Paiskim, that they were asked the following: the procedure in the bus companies today is any Aveida that's found is put in the central office. The hashovasaveida. Rather, one of my children once lost one of these MP3s, and he called up, and they gave it back to him. They had a label when it was found, but they don't make drish v'chakiris like it's supposed to. So both these poskim said that it's good enough. If you find something, you can give it back to the central office. It's not working on drish v'chicha, I say. So they both say that's the way the minig is. You come under the bus on our conditions. We can't hire a worker that's gonna operate in a hashovasaveida room. Now the truth is that that's the same concept. There are certain you can make your tanoim what's best, what works. So we see in a police department they do a good job. It's certainly mutter, but even in a bus company, if they have something decent enough, that's al dasken you came and you're fine. Now, where this is very common is in a yeshiva or in a camp, that you find something, you can put in a lost and found, and hopefully the Bailam will look for it. Now, I want to make a point here. It's mitzvah lefarsim. I heard from a very chashuva Reish Moisid, Talmid Chacham Muflig. He said after the camp is over, he would stay and go from room to room and try to return Aveidis. So he told me it happened a few times. He picked up a suit bag, there's a few suits in it, with a name, called up the people, I found your son's suit bag. Oh, thank you very much. 2 weeks later, ein koil ve'ein oina. So I guess when he started, he was still naive. He calls him again. I want to remind you, you're super. Oh, thank you very much. Ein koil ve'ein oina. What shot? They already bought new ones. Now, why look for it? You could buy new ones. I once mentioned here in the shed, the old building, a number of years ago, before the summer, tell your children when they go to camp, if they lose something, tell them to look for it. Everybody started laughing. I said, I'm not joking. You know what's going on at the end of the summer? Now, this is an avla that has to stop. Because this erlachid is trying to do hashovasaveida, and he's getting burnt. You know, the halacha is clear. It's a shach and shin samach zayin, sif cotton gimel, chazanish, and chayish mishpat, hey, tezayin, spells it out even more mafurish. Your job is to pick it up and be machriz. You're not a UPS service. You're not mechuyev to return it to the Baal Aveida. We all know the lashon. Derech Baal Aveida, lach zal aveidasei. So sometimes it becomes very frustrating. You know, you tell the person, I have your Aveida. He doesn't come. So you could either tell him, I charge for delivery, or I charge for rental. Or you could give him an ultimatum. And if he doesn't come when you tell him, it's Aveida midas. You could keep it. But it shouldn't happen because it's lacking basic menschlichkeit. And it ruins the system. Hashovasaveida becomes an ordeal instead of a schus. So I wish that the system would work better. Someone calls, thank them, and pick it up right away. But let's move on. A very common in a yeshiva, in a camp, it's from the Soidus Ebriya, it's one of the most common shilas. A bacha finds someone else's article of clothing in his laundry. A sock, an undershirt, and in a typical yeshiva, they all have the same clothing, you know. Some have psychedelic, colorful socks, no, but standard black socks with the different gold tip or green, but there's no siman in socks. What do you do? Now, if you see a sock lying on the floor, you could say, aim by siman, I'll leave it there, maybe the Baal will find it. But here, it's in your rishus. Whether you like it or not, you have a חיוב השבה. So, that I can tell you, people, bachrim, don't even know if they're missing. They don't know, they don't count. So this is a real problem that it's not going to come lidei hashava. You put up a sign, if you lost the undershirt, come to me. Very, very slight chance someone's going to come to you. So it's basically worse than that because it's a yishalai midas. He didn't know about it. So this is why there has to be a system that al das came, a sign in the laundry room, any laundry found, we put into a box or closet, whether it's on the floor, whether it's someone else's laundry, in someone else's washing machine. But it has to be a system that works. You know, Baruch Hashem, he's embarrassed to put up a sign, I found the sack, come to me. So I told him you could write someone else's name if you want to, and tell them about it. That's not nice. But the best eitzah to have a lost and found, which is not perfect, but the best we could do. Very common, the mashal in a mikveh. You brought a towel, a swimming pool, and you couldn't find it for a while, and now it showed up, but there's no siman. It's a basic towel. It looks like yours, but you have no siman or tfiyas ayin. Can you keep it? So this is a good question, because typically you have a siman, a certain type of towel. So here again, if lamaisa you have that hashovasaveida box, you could put it in the box, but then you're not going to see it again. So let me tell you what I found, and it's also a mitzvah farsim because it's very negeya. The Mincha Yitzchak in Chele Gimel Siman Yud Zayin has this shaila. You lost a towel in the mikveh, and you came back a few days later, the towel there, but you can't say for sure it's yours. So first he says, maybe you'll assume that if you lost it and you found it there, so good enough. But he quotes the Gemara Gittin, Daf Chav Zayin, that's not true. Someone lost even a get, you can't assume that that's the get that you lost. You'll say, Makam is a siman. I know where I left the towel. So that, he says, is the Gemara in Bava Metzia, Chav Gimel, Chayshemish, but Reish Samach Beis Sif Tes, that if a place that everybody keeps their items there, Riksa the Nahara is the actual case, but Lamaisa, a mikveh is a place for towels, so Makam not a siman. But then he says a very gishmaka yisoid, very relieving. The halacha is in siman kuf lamavav and chayish mishpat, if you took my jacket and I took yours, so I can't use yours because it's not mine. Zok the taz and chayish mishpat sim kuf lamavav. Let's say your jacket is gone. This jacket is not yours, but the one that took yours doesn't know that he swapped. So after a while, when you could assume he did realize it, Ziyash. Then you could keep that jacket, his is yours. So he made a fair change. Frektik Tzois, Sivkat and Beis, how could that be? When you picked it up, his jacket, before Yish, Isuras liyadei. How could you keep it? So that's the kasha that the Tzois says. Zok the Mincha Yitzchak the following. This towel, you can't swear shur deraisa that it's your towel. So he says, B'manashach. If it's yours, so fine. If it's not yours, at least you have the chayra, the task to be seimachan. Because if it's not yours, someone looks like yours. No. But he says more than that. Because in the case of the Taz, the Tzois objects because you know this is not your jacket. So Dr. Tzois, how could you ever keep it? But here, maybe it is your towel. We don't know for sure it's not. So it could be it's yours. And ba'oid, you waited to achayish. So Dr. Minchas Yitzchak, as long as you wait a time that the Bailam will realize that it was swapped, you're allowed to keep the towel. Mamanashach. And the Pesachei Choshen in two places quotes this halacha l'maisa. So l'maisa, this happens all the time in yeshiva. I found something, I'm not sure if it's mine. If you waited a while, it's yours. You want to be very firm, you could put up a sign, towel lost in this area, and write your name. If someone claims that he left the towel there, so you realize it was his, but it's again not going to happen. Next important question. You found money. So we once discussed this by Riches, but Lunyanenu, the Gemara says that money that's found, you could assume shortly afterwards there was a yeshiva, Adam Asamash Bekisai, and it's your money. And then we mentioned that today, Lamaisa, that doesn't seem to be the reality. When was the last time by Chasana you saw anybody on your table say, oh, my money? Oh, Baruch Hashem. Doesn't happen. How many people here know how much money they have? And they would lose money, they would be Aish. It's a different world today. But I mentioned then from the Chazon Ish, the Stipler, and many Gedolim that said that this is a din of Hefker Bez and Hefker. Money that's lost, you're allowed to keep it. As long as it's after Yish. But our child, so if you find money in the street, a $100 bill, a $20 bill, it makes no chilek. Unless the combination is unique, so then you have minyan. Or if you found it in a pouch, so then the pouch is a siman. You found the wallet, so that's a good siman. But if you find a $100 bill, that's no siman, because people have $100 bills. But here's the question. You found the money in the shul, in a yeshiva, in a store, in a mikveh. What's the shayla? Because maybe someone else was kainit first. Who was kainit first? The owner of the building. Because the Mechaber says in Reish Samaches Gimel, based on Gemara Bava Metzia, Chatzerei shel Adam kain aloi shaloi midaitai. So v'mnafal b'metzia harei shebal lachotza. Now that is pashut kipshutai. Chotza is lav dafka chotza. It's huadin and maybe kolshkein, someone's building, someone's room, someone's house. So oy bazoi, If you live next to an apple tree, your backyard, there's an apple tree next to it, that's hefka apples, and they fall into your backyard, that is definitely yours, the apples. How will you kain it? Chatzerei kaina. If someone sticks his hand into your backyard and takes an apple, he's a ganef. I didn't trespass, he didn't go into your rishus, but the apple was mine because my chatzah was kain it. So now the question is, enechanami money is hefka, but the Baal HaChatzah was kain it. So how could I keep the money? So here we'll say, wait a minute, it has to be a chatzeroi, that's kaina, that's a chatzah mishtameres. A shul that's open to the public or any building is a chatzah mishtameres. So how could you think that the chatzah is kainit? And indeed that's true. That if lamaisa it's open to the public, you cannot be kain with your chatzah. Now the Emma said there's another problem with the shul being kain with kinyan chatzah, because as soon as it fell down, so the shul's kain at l'chayr, you want to say, but then it's before Yeshiva. Yeshiva is not the next second; it takes a little bit of time. So the shul was chatzeroi that was kainit before Yeshiva. So there's a shtickle of an einfal. Out of the shach, I should mention Reish Samach, beginning of siman Reish Samach Beis, and the Rachashulchan Reish Samach Tes. Taka says this: if an item falls into a chatzah, that's mishtameres even, but it fell in before Yeshiva, and they can't keep it. But the nesivas on that Reish Samach Beis, nesivas says the chatzah doesn't want to be kainit before Yeshiva, because they're not allowed to. They can't be kainit. So maybe there's a certain, like a delay reaction. It falls down, they're not kainit until there's a yeshiva. But be that as it may, it belongs to the shul before it belongs to you. But if it's a chatzah she'eina mishtameres, which typically it is, so then we're going to say that it doesn't belong to the shul, it belongs to you. I had a big kasha here. This, every shul is eina mishtameres, because people come and go. But only erlich people come to this shul. So who cares if it's a chatzah that people are coming to? They're not going to keep it, they're going to follow Shulchan Aruch. So who cares if it's shchichi rabbim? So Rav Moshe in Choshe Mishpat Chelik Beis Siman Mem Daled the Mascha V'Ayin come out and ask this kasha, and he says that chatzah works either, it's machlokes Rishonim, either mishum yad or mishum shlichus. But a chatzah that's open to the public, I have no smichas das that I'm going to ever get this, because people are coming and going. It doesn't add up to be a kinyan. Not because someone's going to steal, but it's not a yad. If people can come in. So at the end of the day, it's very clear, chatzah she'eina mishtameres, even all Yidden, is not kainit for the balabas. So that's why it's clear, when you come into a shul, or any open place, open to the public, even though there's a chatzah there, but the chatzah is not kainit, if you find the money first, you're allowed to keep it. Now, of course, we once mentioned, the Rav Shulchan Aruch says an inyan lefnei meshuras hadin, to be machriz, even though there's no chiyuv, so you put up a sign, if you lost money, contact me, and if a person tells you what denomination, you're not mechuyev to give it back, because it's not a siman, but you could. Either it's yours or his, but you're not hurting anybody, because no one could get the money back. The only question is that maybe there's more of a problem with the chatzah. The Magen Avraham and Kufnan Dal Tzivkat and Chav Gimel says if you find an item in a chatzah of a Beis HaKnesses, even without the chatzah she'eina mishtameres, the shul's not kainit. Why? Because chatzah mitam yad and ein yad lehektish. Now this is a whole different approach. That hegdish is literal. Hegdish doesn't have a chatzah. A shul, a Beis Medrash, is hegdish. And that's why even if it would be mishtameres, which is not, but even if it would be mishtameres, the shul doesn't have that capacity to have a chutzah operating on its behalf because ein yad lahekdesh. Oh, I'm going to get there. Good question. So Lamaiser B'Kiva Eiga on the page and the Magen Giborim, also Kufn and Dalet, question this. It's not mamish hegdish, but and the Chassam Sofer in the Archaim Memdali says that this shita of Magen Avram is a das yochid, but the Dagam Mervava on the page Mishtabura, Rav Moshe, the Achel Dal, the end of siman Samach Gimel, all say Magen Avram's psak is valid. So here we have a concept of the shul being hegdish, but it's up to Karen LeDavid and Archaim Siman Mem Gimel. What does it mean hegdish? A mikveh is a very holy place. Is that hegdish? A tzedakah office, very holy place. Not hegdish. Hegdish is Torah or tefillah. A dorm room is not hegdish. A dining room, a hall in the shul downstairs is not hegdish. And that's why the Pischei Choshen in Perek Tes Or Lamed Hey explains the Karen LeDavid. Even if you hold like the Magen Avram that it's hegdish, the hegdish has no kinyan yad, it has to be a real pure hegdish. Makam Torah, makam tefillah. Anything else is not hegdish. So if you find something in a dorm room, we're back to the regular question: is it chatzah mishtameres or not? The Pischei Choshen adds something beautiful. He says, "Wait a second. Maybe the Bachor that's in that room is like he rented the room. So now he's the chatzah, not the yeshiva." So he says, no. A dorm room, you pay to get a room. Lav dafka this room. Baraya, if they want to move you, they're going to move you. And that's why the Baruchim know this a lot, that then I'm to put up mezuzah in the dorm. Even though chayvas hadar, they should be mechuyev, but you're not renting a room. You pay for a bed to sleep in. If it's here or there, it's up to the yeshiva. So a dorm room is not a rental. It's the chatzah of the Beis Medrash. But again, it's not hegdish. So we come back to this original question: is it chatzah mishtameres? Then it belongs to the yeshiva. If it's ein mishtameres, kol hakoydim zoch. If a manayel, we once had the shayla, a manayel found in his office money. So the emphasis, the manayel's office is very holy, but it's not hegdish. It's not it's a chatzah mishtameres because he sees what's going on, but he's not the bailam. He doesn't rent the office. Probably it belongs to the yeshiva because it's the chatzah mishtameres of the yeshiva. Now, what you asked is an excellent question. A private shul. So let me be clear. A private shul, I mean to say, very common in Lakewood. People have, especially in the newer neighborhoods, someone he donates or he volunteers his basement for a minyan. He owns it. It's basically private property that he's opening to the public. So the emphasis is that it could be hegdish is not totally in tax deductible or a mosad in that sense. It's who owns it, right? The fact that it's a non-profit organization doesn't make it hegdish. If it's his basement that people are using, maybe it's not hegdish. And I saw the of Sternbuch in Chelik Alf Tafsaf Yutes that Lamaisa, it's not hegdish. It's my private basement. The Mishpatei Aveida Amud Nun Aleph also says this. But the Pischei Choshen does add, and I think it's not a machlokes, but in Perek Tes Or Lamed Hey, that if this basement is run by funds of the public, everybody's paying money, membership, so even though he owns the basement, but that's what hegdish is all about. It's something that's kodesh Lashem. So it's really totally in who's running it. If someone has a private shul mamish that he pays for it, and chanami. But mistavra is that if people are constantly keeping the upkeep of the Beis Medrash, then it's more mistavra that would be considered hegdish. But the emphasis is probably not negeya, because more often than not, it's a chatzah mishtameres. Who cares who owns it? If there's traffic in and out, then halacha is they're not kinda with kinyan chatzah. Question: you found an aveida in a mikveh or a store or the like. So a mikveh again is very holy, but it's not a hegdish. A store is also not a hegdish, and there's a private owner. But here we're going to come on to the concern that it's an eina mishtameres, especially if there are goyish workers that are cleaning up. If they find something, they're going to keep it. So that's why in a mikveh or in a store, it does not belong to the owner of the store or mikveh. It technically belongs to the finder. If you find money in a mikveh or a store, it's yours. Now, in the mikvahs, in moistus today, as I told you earlier, there is a takana that has to work. You come in, please watch your items, but anything that's found is hefka. After 30 days, whatever it is, if you find an aveida in a store and there's a yesh by siman, you have to pick it up and put it into lost and found, because it is a חיוב השבה. Aim by siman, you could leave it there, or you could put it into lost and found. A store is definitely not hegdish, but then again, if you find money in a store, you could keep it, because it's eina mishtameres. And taka we find this halacha from a kamat mefurish. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch in siman reish samach sif hey, Mechaba says if you found money where only the storekeeper goes, so that's his. You find money where everybody goes, it's open, so that's eina mishtameres. That's mamash al sugya. So money in the store that people walk, have free access, you find money, you can keep it. You want to announce it, but no doubt about it, you find money in a store where it's open to the public, harei elu shaloi, finders keepers. Now, but, and here's the but, it's a package deal. If you find earmuffs, gloves, almost anything that you find in a store, same halacha. It's not you can't give it to the owner of the store. Here, I found an aveida. No. He's not kainit. If you picked it up, you're kainit. Not kainit, you have a חיוב השבה. You see, it goes two ways. See, many storekeepers say, I make it tonight, I'm not kainit any aveidis in my store. Okay, that works. Because even if mishtameres is not kainit bal karchai, but then you can't say, hey, you found money, give it to me, it's mine. No. It can be mine. So the finder has the same story. You want to keep the money because you found it. If you pick up an aveida, you have to be matap with it. Whatever that means. If there's a number, call the person up. So that's the chayr klar. We found money on the bus. Now this is important. So Rabbi could keep it because that's considered bakum sheni mishtameres. I said earlier, it goes to the central office. That's if the bus worker, the bus driver, or the cleaner finds it. But if you found it first, so it's eina mishtameres, you keep the money. I heard this story, Ma'aseh Shehaya. Someone found money in his house, but it wasn't his. What do you do with it? Obviously someone dropped it there. He doesn't know who. But if there's aim by siman, and you can assume there's yeshiva, you're allowed to keep it. But here it took an interesting twist to it. A worker called the Yiddish from a worker, and he's working in a room and he sees money on the floor. So he tells the boss, by the way, you must have dropped money. He goes, money? No, that's not mine. He looks at it, Mamash doesn't recognize it. Obviously, either a cleaning lady or worker dropped the money. So this is interesting. The Mechaba in Reish Samachez Gimel says, and this is Mishtameres. But the Shulchan Aruch, based on Rishonim, actually a Gemara, that if it's an item that you're not, if in your house you don't typically find aveidis, which you don't, then there's no chatzah, because it has to be something that's shchiach. And some learn that literally. If you're not anticipating finding an aveida, you're going to have kinyan chatzah. But most poskim understand it to mean if it's a small item, someone lost a ring, and it fell in a crevice. You might never find that. Then, what you don't know or don't anticipate is not yours. But money, even though you didn't anticipate it, but when you find it, it's there, then chatzerish l'adam kainai. Now this is the shita of the Nesivis, the Rav, or Shulchan, that if it's an item that you might never find, l'mashal, you bought something from a guy and it was deep in the wall, it was hidden there, you can't be kind of what you never knew about. But if an aveid is found, even though you don't expect aveidis, but it's right there, chatzerish l'adam kainai. So our case is a perfect example of that, and l'maisa the balabas could take the money from the worker. The worker can't be kainit because the chatzah was kainit before him. I just heard a shayla, true story. A bachur in the yeshiva asked me, the bachur found money in his parents' home. He lives b'shalom with his parents, obviously. He asked his parents, is this your money? No. So they started talking halacha. But this is mamash our case. Since the chatzera was a chatzah mishtameres, it belongs to the parents. Next question, also a true story. A plumber was doing work by a sink, and he had to make a little of a hole on the bottom area of the sink. And Punkti found a real expensive ring. It must have dropped from someone and fell into the crevice. The balabas says, it's not mine. I'll be honest with you. The Yiddish worker, each balabas, they're talking, he's the after zayin. Question, who's kind of the ring? Obviously, someone, they don't know who, they can never find out who, lost the ring, and there's no siman. So this would be the case that I mentioned earlier. An aveida in my chatzah, if theoretically it's so small and so hidden, I will never find it, my chatzah is not kaina. And indeed, it will belong to the plumber. Rav Moshe in Chelik Dalad Yeridei Simem Dalad has an unbelievable shayla where someone was making bedikas chametz erev Pesach. He was rather a tenant, and he found when he was looking, he was checking halacha, and in a crevice he found a ring, mamish like this story. He asked the balabas, it's not mine. I bought the house recently, it's not mine. But the house was built by a couple. The man died first, the woman died later, and she owned the house, and no one else lived in the house but her. So it's probably hers, but she didn't leave it in the Yerusha. The children didn't know anything about it. They called her children, they knew nothing about it. So they think maybe it's Yaash. Moshe says, no, they make a mistake. Yerusha goes automatically. The woman forgot about it. She didn't know about it. She was unaware of it. Makes no chiluk. Yerusha is not totally in Yaash. It belonged to the Yarshim, because it can't be anybody else's, don't forget. Because no one lived there but them, they built the house. Why is it Yaash? No, you know Yaash on my house?
When she was Miyash on the item...
No, maybe she stored it there. She put it away. She stored it there. Now, Lamaisa, if you find money in someone's private house by yeshiva brachas, or a base avel, that is a chotza she'ena mishtameres. You're allowed to keep it. Again, is there for you if you want to do that. Now, Lamaisa, you found money in a hotel. So the hotel owners are not kainit, it's ein mishtameres, and you don't know which of the previous tenants, whatever you call them. So this is something that we could say, Hare Elu Shalom. And the last question is, you find an item belonging to a child, Lamashal Gedolim cards, Torah cards. The Kitzah, it's a childish item, and can you keep it? Or you find money in a camp. Now why do I stress camp? A camp has a junior division. And here the question is, you find an item that you could assume there was Yaash, but it belonged to a cotton. So what? So here's the aside that a cotton cannot be Yaash for two good reasons. Number one, it's not his. It's his parents. Number two, Ein Baidas. The Mechaber in Reish Samach Sivav says, if Yisayimim that don't have parents, of or Aim, lose an item, there's no din Yaash. Because Ein and B'nai Mechila, they cannot affect a Yaash. And all the poskim say the Mechaber chose Yisayimim l'Rebusa, even though they have no parents and they are the CEOs at home, but they're not capable of making yish. Kol shkein, a regular child. And that's why it's klar. The Rav says it's ketanim ein yiyusham umechila klum. The Pesachayishin ein yiyosh al katan yiyosh, period. So any item that belonged to a katan, even after yiyosh, you can't keep it. But there's one factor. And that is, true, the katan can't be miyayish. But his parents, when the katan says, I lost my cards, I lost my Gedolim pictures, or I lost anything, so if they're the bailam, they could be miyayish. The child lost something in camp, the parents, if they know about it, their yish works. Or, like someone told me, when you send a child to camp with clothing, that's a yish midas, which is not necessarily true. But I did see the Taz and Reish Samach Aleph, the Goyin and Sif Katan Tes, and the Sif seems to give the age, up until the age of 5 or 6, giving a child that age something is an automatic yish. Because you know, Aveida Midas. But Lamaisa, when you find a child's item after yish, we could be makel if it was yish of the parents, or the parents were miyayish on the item knowing the child had it. I couldn't talk to you all. Pretty good. Yeah, I don't know.
Shem Egan Shir, tell like you big ashakach of Smith for today's shir. Like you big ashakach, so Rabbi Shachatois is sponsoring today's shir, Nishmas Imoy, Dina Basur, Yeshiva, Shalom Yotzechov, Best TV, like you big ashakach, Rabbi Stern for sponsoring today's shir, Nishmas Aviv, Bichil Siber, Moisha Halevi, Shalom Yotzechov TV, Same Jerusalem, Sarah Chaim. We're sponsoring a share call, Shir Terra 718-851-8651, email ist@yeshiva.net.com. Kananya ben Akasha, Emel Otzagadish Baruch Lazakis, as Yisrael, Figure Hibbon Taimit Shnema Alanoy Chofes Aman Sidki, Yagdul Tervi Yadeh. Okay, quickly, before anyone's miyayish, I'm in the sikkim on hashovasaveida.
Okay, well, first we learned that there's a mitzvah yikara called hashovasaveida, there's a lav and a say, and it takes time, it takes effort, but it's certainly worth it. Derech hinuach, leave, unless it's going to get stolen or broken. If it's put in a place, the Bailam put it there, leave it there. It is a chesed, if the Bailam forgot about where it is, to call him and notify him, but there's no hashovasaveida on derech hinuach. And aim by siman, there's no din of hashovasaveida. That's what Yakov says. We'll be simcha on that. If you find it after yeshiva, of course, somebody got to keep it. But before yeshiva, you could leave it there. You can keep it, but you don't have to be on top with it. Money usually is harelu shaloi, unless it's on the table, unless it's derech hinuach, then leave it where it is. If you certain that the bailam won't come, but the item has a siman, that's a very difficult shaila. It's a contemporary issue because people used to look for avedas. We did see some that are mekel, there's no chiyuv ashava, but definitely you can't keep it until the bailam is miyayish. You can't put an item in a lost and found even though it doesn't qualify to be an ashava, but that's what the minig ha'olam is. Al das kain, people come. A bus company that puts the avedas in central office, that's the best they can. If you find it on a bus, that would be an eina mishtameres. You call and tell a person that you have his item. If he doesn't come, then it's iyud afshar and afshay. There's no chiyuv to return the item. You should give him an ultimatum. If you don't come, I'm going to discard of it. If you find laundry in your laundry, someone's socks, clothing, whatever it is, there's really no feasible way to get it back unless he mamish claims it, which is not going to happen. The best thing is put it in a lost and found and make the system work. Something that looks like yours and you waited enough time that you give the real bailam the opportunity to come back, you could assume it's yours. Memanashach, take it, gesund hate. Money is still har'elu shaloi unless it fell into a chatzah, mishtameres, that's not hegdish. But hegdish has no chatzah, Eina mishtameres has no chatzah. A private shul that's funded by the tzibur could qualify to be hegdish. A mikveh or a store is not hegdish, but both of them are eina mishtameres, and aveida you find is yours if it's ein by siman, of course. Yesh by siman, it's your schus, not your headache, your schus, metapel with it. A private home that finds an aveida belongs to the bailam. If the worker finds an aveida, unless it's an item that possibly is because it's so small, is never found. An item of Yerusha goes automatically, doesn't have to be any awareness. Money in a private home after Sheva Brachas Beisavel that ain't by Simon, Areelu Shaloi. A cotton doesn't have the capacity to make yeshiva, but his parents do. And I should mention that women also have no real yeshiva because it's not theirs, but Pais can say today women have certain financial rights to use the money that might have changed. But basically, cotton has no yeshiva unless the parents affect that yeshiva. Yes.